Okay, we learned Le'ili Nishmat, Vigdar Chai Avram ben Rachel Leah ben Tzvi. We also learned for the man from whom Avraham is named, also the Le'ili Nishmat Avraham ben Natan Halevi, and also for Mendel, what was it? Okay, it'll come back. You tell me when you remember, we'll add it to the mix. It's okay. It's quite all right. Fine. We're going to move on to the next Mishnah. We're in chapter 3, Pirke Gimel, Mishnah Yud Aleph, number 11. Mindel Rezel Bat Tzivya. Thank you. What we're going to do, I'm just going to give a little introduction first to the Mishnah. I'm going to mention a little bit about a man who we talked about last week, Rabbi Hanina ben Harkinas. I said I would tell you a little bit about him because he was actually a very interesting individual. And then we're going to get into this Mishnah. This Mishnah we're about to do is different than the one before, a couple before it, because the ones before that, ones we just finished, had to do with things that we are, our heart draws us towards. In other words, let's say, for example, I like to sleep. Okay, so I feel a need to sleep, but I sleep too much. Or whatever the topic were that we said, too much of anything is not a good thing. Too much water is also not a good. You can actually drown from drinking too much water. You can definitely drown. Yes. But the Mishnah we're going to do in a moment actually deals with a different perspective, and that is thoughts. Our thoughts. Our machashavot ra'ot, our deot kozvot, like our twisted perspectives in this life and how they can lead us down a wrong path. But before we get to that, I want to read to you a little bit, actually like a little story from the Gemara of Rabbi Hanina ben Harkinas. It is somewhat known, I think, the story. Need to get it from here. It's actually a Mishnah in Masechet Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to read it to you. I'm not going to translate every word. I'm going to read it, and then I'll kind of give you the summary of what it's saying. There was a story where two witnesses came and said, two witnesses came and said that they saw the moon in one sky in the morning and one other side of the sky in the evening. No, they're liars, can't be, because it's not possible. But when they came to the city of Yavne, Rabbi Gamliel accepted their testimony. That same day, another couple came and said, we saw a new moon, let's say today, but then it wasn't there the next day. Something doesn't make sense. And Rabbi Gamliel accepted their testimony that the day before was Rosh Chodesh. Something's wrong here, right? Mm-hmm. And along comes Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinas, who's the one in this Mishnah. It says, they're liars. They can't be telling the truth. How can you give testimony that one day you saw a woman gave birth, and the next day you say she's pregnant still? Doesn't happen. So Rabbi Yeshua said, I agree, you're right. Now what happens? Now they have a disagreement as to when Rosh Chodesh is. But this wasn't just Rosh Chodesh. This was Rosh Chodesh for, it seems, for Tishrei, which will affect when Yom Kippur is. Shalach Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel, when he heard that he was being challenged, sent a message. Goes Rani alecha shetavo etzli b'makle uv'ma'otcha b'yom ha'kippurim shechal liot b'cheshboncha. I tell you, you better show up to me on the day that, according to your reckoning, based on these witnesses, you come to me with your backpack and your walking stick and with your money on Yom Kippur that you think it would have been. He went and he saw that Rabbi Akiva was very sad about this whole thing. Okay, fine. Balo etz Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinas. Amar lo, im ba'in lanu ladun achar beit dino shel Rabbi Gamliel, tzrichim anu ladun achar kol beit din ubeit din shama mimot Moshe ad harshav. The end of the story, I'm not going to go into the details. At the end of the story, Rabbi Harkinas, he ends up going and saying to him the following: Amar Rabbi Gamliel, Eitz Rabbi Gamliel b'chol yom Amar lo bo b'shalom Rabbi b'talmidi. He says, "Come to me, my master and my student." This is the one who had the dispute with. Rabbi b'chochma, you are my teacher when it comes to Chokhmah. What does it mean when he said to him, you are my master, my teacher when it comes to wisdom? And what does it mean you're my Talmid, you're my student when it comes to the fact that you accepted my words? Now, these two great rabbis had this big dispute. It wasn't just like the meat is kosher, the meat is not kosher. It was, when is Yom Kippur going to fall out, actually? So in the end, the one, Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinis, subjugated himself and said, you're right, I'm wrong. So the recipient of that statement said, you have taught me tremendous what wisdom's all about. That it's not about being right or wrong, it's about the truth. And also that you're my student because you accepted my words. That's who he was. This is the man who we talked about in the last Mishnah. And we're going to move into the current Mishnah now. We'll read it and explain sort of, because I'm not going to explain everything yet. Again, we're in Pirke Gimel, chapter 3, Mishnah Yud Aleph, number 11, which may be a different number in your Mishnah. I'm going to start with a man named Rabbi Lezer Hamodai. Okay. It could be because one of the early Mishnah are divided into like 3 or 4 parts. It starts with the words Rabbi Elazar Hamodai Omer, and I'll tell you who he was in a minute. Okay, just make sure you find it. I'll take the water. Check on the Epicuro. I put it down here already. Try not to knock it over. Okay, let's read the Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar Hamodai Omer. Rabbi Elazar Hamodai, and I'll explain what that means shortly, said. Yeah, y'all have it? No? It's 30 in that book. Okay. Whoever who cheapens or makes into something that's holy and makes it into profanes is probably the better word. Profanes something holy. Desecrate. That's even a better word. Thank you. And someone who cheapens the holidays, again, all this has to be explained. This one doesn't need much explanation. Someone who embarrasses his friend in public. And someone who rejects Brit Milah, we'll see what that means. And he interprets Torah that does not go in sync with what the Torah is all about. He may be the nicest guy in the world, and maybe all that he put on his tefillin took him an hour to put it on with all the kavanot and everything else. Doesn't have a place in the world to come. That's a very strong statement. So some of these things we have to really understand. We have to understand what they're really talking about, because to say a statement and just kind of throwaways, oh, he doesn't have a place in Olam Haba, that's pretty big. There's a Mishnah in the Masechet Sanhedrin that has a similar statement where it says, first of all, it starts off with the words which we may know. All Jews have a place in the world to come. And then, of course, it goes along and tells you who doesn't. It includes some of these people. Okay, so some of this idea appears over there as well. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me tell you a little bit who he was. Rabbi Elazar Hamodai. Based on his name, his moniker, Hamodai, he was likely from Modi'in, the city of Modi'in. He also was a compatriot of Bar Kokhba. For those of you who know a little about the Jewish history, we actually did the Bar Kokhba revolution in Jewish history. We know that after the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, about 60 years later, there was a revolt. It was the last gasp of the Jews against the Romans. And Rabbi Elazar Hamodai was actually like the rabbinical figure in Bar Kokhba's life. Bar Kokhba credits him with being the spiritual backbone of the revolution. He also was very much into teaching halachot about tum'ah and tahara. Things that, say, for example, nowadays doesn't apply. Person opens up a pot and there's a bug inside. The bug makes it not treif, makes it tameh, ritually impure, and you have to go to the mikvah. But keep in mind, when is he teaching this? A dead bug. Keep in mind, when he's finding these things, or he's teaching these things, it's already after destruction of Beit HaMikdash. Because he has this emunah, the Beit HaMikdash is coming back. I will tell you parenthetically, I'm learning right now a Sechet Kelim, I think it is, in Mishnah, and talks about all these things, and think the bugs. It's like, we think, oh, Hilchot Shabbat is so tough, or Shemitah, whoa, so much to know. I'll tell you, when Mashiach comes, we're going to be keeping the mitzvot Tuman Tahara. You better be ready for like months of preparation for that. It's like so much to know. And anyways, so like I say, he was involved in the Bar Kochba revolution, and there's a tragic story to his end. Evidently, Bar Kochba believed he got bad information. That evidently he believed that Rabbi Elazar Modai had somehow betrayed him to the Roman governor, and at that point, the revolt started to take a turn. He pushed him or did something to him. He ended up falling and getting killed. He was actually killed. And that was I read that as Bar Kochba did that. Maybe it was maybe Tarful. Maybe I will double check. Thank you. Just as I say it doesn't mean it's right. No. I have found over the years when someone says, "Wait a minute, I thought it was X," I'm usually wrong and they're right. Almost always. So we'll take a look. We'll straighten that up. Right. Correct. That's correct. It's Uncle Bar Kochba. That's correct. Okay. So let's go now a little bit and talk about each one of these different topics. The idea of Hamachalel or Kodashim. First, we have to understand what Kodashim, what is Hekdesh. If I have, we're talking time of Beit HaMikdash for a moment. If I have a bull, I own a bull, and I use it to help plow my field. I do all kinds of things, no problem. I end up shechting it. I eat the meat. Obviously, I kosher it and all that. No problem. I'm using a bull on purpose because cows aren't brought as a korban. Yeah, it's a bull. It's a male. It's a male. It's fine. It's going to the Beit. Now I say one day I wake up and say, instead of shechting, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give it to the Beit HaMikdash. It's Harei Alai Korban. It's now I'm taking this as a korban. Absolutely no problem. No problem. But now I cannot bring it and use it for anything else. I can't use it now to plow my field. I can't use it to do anything else. I can't kill it and eat it. It's going to be killed and eaten as a korban, but it can't be just as chulin, as like regular weekday stuff as opposed to holy product. So in addition to that, if I am mechalel, let's say I said this animal is hekdesh, is kodesh, and now I go ahead and I take it and I use it for some other purpose, I'm mechalel at the kodashim. Does that mean, now I don't get a place in the world to come? It's a little bit more complicated, but we're just going to take it right now on surface level. There's another couple ideas. What does it mean? I'm mechalel at the kodashim. There's something called bedek habayit. You'll very often find even shuls nowadays when they do a campaign for bedek habayit. It means repairing the house. It's even used colloquially when you say, okay, I need to do some bedek habayit. In your own place, you have to do some kind of shiputzim or repairs or whatever it might be, so that if a person donates money or sets something aside, says, I know the Beit HaMikdash, they could use a new power drill to repair whatever it might be to repair the Beit HaMikdash, and I give it to Beit HaMikdash. It's not a korban, but it has a level of kedusha because now it is in the hands of the Beit HaMikdash. Now I can't say, you know what, I forgot I need to borrow for a few minutes. I forgot I have to hang a picture. So that doesn't work. Doesn't it sound a little bit radical, though, to say you take something that's hekdesh and use it for something regular, and then ein lo chelek l'mata? Let's go a little further. We just had the incident of Nadav and Avihu in the parasha, where they brought an Esh Zara, a foreign fire, meaning it was not commanded to bring, it wasn't coming down from heaven, and they died. And the Haftarah is about Uzzah and Achio, who had taken a wagon. They put the aron on the wagon. It starts to slide off. Uzzah sticks his hand out, and he grabs it, and he should never have done that because we say that the aron carries those who carry it, and he's struck down. David's all upset about it also. Like something's just, come on. Like this human nature. I have here, where is it? I have it's on my finger. One of my fingers here. I have a scar with like a little bubble of whatever here. Many, many, many years ago in a prior life when I worked in purchasing in a company, one of the things I did is they sent me to school to learn how to program. At that time was brand new, something called a CNC machine. It was a computer operated machine that would punch metal in certain shapes. And then when they took it out, then they could bend it into cabinets or whatever. And I learned how to program it. It was fascinating. I had this big piece of steel And I was testing the machine. I would take it, put it on. I wore gloves. No, I didn't wear gloves. I put it on the machine, and it's going through. And somehow one of the pieces, only about that big, slipped off the table. And naturally, I went to grab it and sliced my finger real bad. And it's actually you're talking 1982, 83. It's still tender to this day. Anyways, but it's a natural reaction. So the fact that Uzzah stretches out his hand, grabs the Arot, is about to fall. For that, he died. Nadav and Avihu, they had great intentions. The whole point in all of this is you have to understand where you are at that moment. I'm going to give you an example we can all relate to, even though it's very hard. We would never be able to do this, I don't think. It's true in the Marines, and it's true, they call them, I think, beef eaters, the ones who stand by the guard at the Buckingham Palace. I'm not talking about the drink. So a person I knew one guy actually who was a Marine, who his job, he trained for 8 months to be the one who stood at the door of the White House. When you ever see them stand like this and the president comes, they open the door and close it, and they stand like this. 8 months of training to do that. Same thing with the people who work at Arlington Cemetery, at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. It's a much longer preparation. They also have to swear off, I think, alcohol for the rest of their life, and they can't speak for the first few months. I've read about unbelievable preparation for that. The people who stand there like this, and kids come by and they try to make them laugh. No, they're focused. Why? Because you're talking whether you forget politics. It's the reverence of the place. It's where you are. I'm sure you've seen videos or pictures of in the absolute pouring rain. You see the Marines, I don't know if the Marines, that are doing the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, walking back and forth. I've seen it a few times in person. It's magnificent to watch. The concentration, the focus, the timing, everything. And why? They're staying in cemeteries. It's a body. No, it represents the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, what that tomb represents, what the White House represents, what the Buckingham Palace represents. It's being in the power of the place and recognizing it that you do not have. You're not in control. You need to be controlled. You have to control yourself to make sure you're in tune with that. That's what happened with Uzanachu. That's what happened with Nadav and Avihu. That's what this is talking about too. Oh, I'm just going to take that drill back and use it. Oh, I'm just going to take that cow or bull and I'll use it to plow. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to understand that belongs in quotes now to Hashem, and there's something called me'ilah, mem ayin yud lamed hey. It's the Hebrew word, halachic word for trespassing. Doesn't mean could also mean that you went into the wrong place, but it's using something you're not allowed to use from hektish. Taking let's say a scoop for the fire pan and using it to scratch your back, God forbid. I actually saw it with my own eyes. I won't say where it was. At a wedding, they were serving like 10 pizzas in his oven. And a kid, probably 17 years old, one of the waiters is behind it. He's using a pan to like take the pizzas out. And there was one sitting on the side because it was cold, and he took it. Went like that. And I went to him right away in Hebrew. I said, "Are you out of your mind?" He says, "No, no, no. I'm going to put it in the fire and heat it and burn it off." I said, "If I were your boss, I'd fire you right now." Like, really? That's disgusting. Anyways, that's nothing to do with this class, just that share a story. What's that? Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, just be careful when you eat pizza from now on, if I'm serving you, especially. So disrespecting Kedusha, disrespecting something that's holy. Now, that doesn't mean that Chas v'Shalom, of course, you're in shul and they're opening, they bring the Sefer Torah and they're doing Hagbah, and you didn't pay attention to say Zot HaTorah. It's not appropriate, but it's not the same thing. By the way, parenthetical, halacha, a lot of people don't know. You know, there's the custom of sticking your little pinky out to point. There's some Kabbalistic behind it. Some saying I make myself small before the Torah, like my small finger. That's nice. It's a custom. But there's a halacha that I've seen 90% of people aren't aware of. When the Torah is facing you, the words of the Torah are facing you, you're supposed to bow. That's in the halacha. It's in the Shulchan Aruch. I don't see people do it. But that's why I try to mention it to people. So now you know. The more you know. Yeah. Same thing. The whole time is supposed to be bad. No, we're talking about during Hagbah. Only Hagbah. Yeah, only Hagbah. That's correct. And sorry, we do Hagbah beforehand. Yeah. I think I told a story. Someone called me up about the halacha Hagbah. He wanted to look it up in Shulchan Aruch because he had a question. He couldn't find it. He says, it's not in Shulchan Aruch. I said, of course it is. I said, where did you look? He says, I looked. There was the halachot of Kriyat Torah, and then I looked for Hagba. I said, well, it's written by a Sfardi, Rabbi Yosef Karo. Hagba's first. Oh, so that's why it's in that order. Yeah. There is an opinion that the idea of Hamachalel et HaKodashim refers to being mevazet Talmidei Chachamim, derision or deriding Talmidei Chachamim. I'm not talking about somebody who just happens to know a lot of Torah. I'm not talking about necessarily a Rav. I'm talking about Gedol, real Gedol, not necessarily what we have in some cases today, but real Gedolei Israel. That you are saying things and doing things against them, publicly defaming them. No, that's according to some mevazet et hakodashim as well. And one other last possibility, and this one I actually can think of people who this may apply to. Unfortunately, they learn a lot of Torah in order just to dispute and detract from the efficacy of Torah. That's their goal. Now, as they're not learning Torah to learn Torah, they're learning it specifically to counteract what Torah is all about. Yeah, absolutely not the chorus. Absolutely. Which comes from the Greek word for Epicurean, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die. Hamavazet hamoadot, someone who cheapens, who puts in, what's the English say for mavazet hamoadot? Disgraces, okay. Degrades, okay. The holidays. So first we have to understand what holidays we're talking about. But before that, I want to share with you a thought I've said multiple times. I heard it years ago. I don't remember who said it, but I absolutely loved it. And every time I use the word moed, I have to mention it. On a fast day, on Shabbat Chazon, the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av, the Haftorah is Chazon Yeshayahu ben Amos, the very first chapter in Yeshayahu. And there's a pasuk in there that's really kind of scary. It says, Chodshechem u'mo'adechem sana'a nafshi, your Rosh Chodesh and your holidays, I hate them. Hayu alay latorach, they were a burden to me. This is God talking. Like, that's really harsh. Just, Hashem, like, say, okay, you messed up. You're not keeping Shabbat properly. Chagim. I hate your Rosh Chodesh. I hate your Moadim. And you've become a burden on me? There's a pasuk we read in this week's parasha. I think. I go through the parasha, you think I remember. These are my, it is the introductory pasuk to the Chagim, which is in the parasha. And then it talks about first about Shabbat and then all the Chagim. So listen to the words. How do I say? Moadei Hashem. These are the holidays of God, or the meeting points of God. These are my holidays. What does that mean, Elohim Moadai? So we see in commentaries tell us it means that this is my time with you. You're busy. I know during the week, come Shabbat is partially my time. Chagim, now I want some of your time as well. Elohim Moadai. These are my appointed times. What does the pasuk in Yeshayahu say? Chodshechem u'mo'adechem sana'a nafshi. Your Rosh Chodesh and your holidays. That is what I can't stand. You've made it all about you. I'm completely left out of the equation. That's not what I planned. That's not what you should be doing. That's what part of the downfall of Bnei Yisrael was at that point. And that really does fit in with Hamavazet HaMoadot. When we have Shabbat is for sure, but even Chagim, and we're going to see about Chol HaMoed also in a minute, but on Chagim, when we have more time, it's a good time with the family, it's a good time with friends, good time for eating and davening and all, but you have a little bit more time on your hands, a little bit goes to God. Oh, I davened. That's nice. That's great. A little bit goes to Hashem as well. And that's what the purpose, one of the purposes is. And it's called the Moed, like you have in the Ohel Moed, which was before the Mishkan. It was called, in English, it was known as the tent of meeting. Basically between the meeting between generally Moshe and Hashem, but the connection, the meeting point between God and man. But the word Moed means a meeting, right? A meeting point. Because these are the times when we meet up with Hashem. More so than other days, possibly. Because we have more time on our hands. We don't have the same day-to-day stuff. So Hamavazet HaMoadot, in one respect, is exactly this. It's Chodshechem u'moadechem sana'a nafshi. Where Hashem says, that's what you're doing with all the free time I've given you? I'll give you, this is not a good example, but it popped into my head. I have a She's not yet a student. She wants to be a student. She keeps telling me I have to study for a certain bagrut. We're going to sit down and we're going to meet. I know the bagrut's in 3 weeks. And I know she hasn't learned a thing this year, which means in 3 weeks, she wants to learn a year's worth of material. Not the first time I've had that with students. I've had it at least a half a dozen times. I send a message. Okay, let's go. Set up time. Crickets. Next day, I send another message. Okay, running out of time, dude. Let's get the show on the road. No response. And now I said to myself, there's just so much I can chase, right? You have the time. I know you got your things to do in the city and your friends. That's great, but at least set aside an hour, 2 hours, something, and sit down with me already. I'm doing this l'tovatech. I'm doing this for your benefit, not mine. I mean, I get the points because I get to learn Torah also. That's great, but I want you to grow. I want you to pass. I want you to learn. Nothing. So in a sense, it's like I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna throw my. I threw my hands. I said to myself, I didn't say to her, "You want it? I'm here. Let's go. I'll wait for you, and then I'll be happy to do it." I've had other situations, similar students, where it's like 2 weeks before. I said, okay, let's do it. I asked them always the same question. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you actually know so we can go through that and skip it? 1. 1.5. I've never had a student in that situation say more than 2 or 3. They check out for 6 months and they think they're going to get it all pounded into their head at the last minute. Thankfully, almost all of them that do that with me end up passing. Passing can be 55, but that's okay. That's all you got to do. You got to get a 55 or 60, depending on the particular.
So it doesn't matter if you just better.
So technically, you can get a 55 or even a 50 and still pass the bagrut, because the bagrut, many people, it's a whole system.
So I'm saying no one knows if you've gotten a 95.
No, it'll show on something, but it'll show you passed. It doesn't necessarily show a grade. It doesn't show if you had various hakalot, all kind of stuff. But the bagrut score itself is based on multiple things. It has to do with projects. It has to do with attendance. It's not just the score on the test. It's not the regents or the SATs or something like that. I gave a class to a number of parents last year on all the nomenclature of bagrut and what they mean and how they're figured out, and also it's interesting. Anyway, so hamvazet modot. So what modim are we talking about? So first, like I said, in general, we're talking about. That's good. Baruch Hashem, people are happy in life. I wonder if it's my daughter out there. We'll see. Is it? Was it? Oh, okay. Yeah, save for another day. She shall live to see another day. Anyways, so it could be Shabbatot, it could be Chagim, it could be Purim, it could be Hanukkah. The days that are set aside for something special, use them for what they're for, and also spend the time with Hashem. Similar to this, though, it's when a person takes the day of Chag, and it's just about eating and drinking and sleeping, and really, and our family, which is really important too, but really nothing else beyond that, Jewish-wise. In a sense, what you're doing, it's a lack of faith. It's a lack of belief in Hashem. It's a diminution in someone's emunah, because we've been giving that. It's interesting. I like when I'm teaching and something pops in my head. I try to go with it until I lose my train of thought. And that is, there's in the Shulchan Aruch, before the Shulchan Aruch, if you remember learning this, there was the Tur, the Balat Turim, divided the Code of Jewish Law into 4 sections. And usually the Tur, when he gives halacha, he gives the halacha, not the background and history and all that stuff. But when it comes to the halacha of sukkah, he talks about the sukkot teshu shivat yamim. You should sit in the sukkah for 7 days. The manirudo v'techem, so that your future generations will know. Kiva sukkot oshati et bnei Yisrael. That I took you out of Egypt and put you in Sukkot along the way through the desert. And he says that a person who sits in the sukkah and doesn't think about that was not yotzei their mitzvah. That's very unusual for the Torah to mention something like that. It's like a kavanah, like an intention, like it's saying, look, if I say put on my tefillin, I didn't have real intention, I'm yotzei. But what's he saying there? He's saying you're missing the entire point of the sukkah if you miss that point. That when you sit in the sukkah, it's to remind you that Bnei Yisrael traveled in the desert and that Hashem protected us either with clouds or with actual sukkot. That's a machloket. What are you doing? You're sitting outside in a hut, right? B'diavad, of course, you're still yotzei, the mitzvah and all, but it's not the best way. So it's unusual for the Torah to tell us a kavanah or a thought we're supposed to have when we eat. We eat in a sukkah, But that's part of the reason here. Why? And therefore, you're actually almost expressing a lack of emunah because yeah, God did that. Okay, let's eat. What is it? They tried to kill us. We won. Let's eat. I'm still waiting for the what we won part. This one. The Yavitz, who I've quoted a few times, says that it refers to the times when there was Kiddush HaChodesh. There was, like we mentioned before with the other gentleman, where witnesses would come and would determine that the month was the new month that started. And based on that, the Sanhedrin would say the month is Mukdash, the month is sanctified. And if it was the month of Pesach, then on the 15th, Pesach would happen. On the 14th, would be Korban Pesach and all that other fun stuff. It referred to people, B'Chalelat HaKodashim, that said that when that time period was around, and people said, oh, please, we don't have that power. We can't really do that. What they said really doesn't mean much. It's probably around the 15th. Who cares? Again, cheapening the whole idea. What is it kadosh here, though? First of all, we say kiddush hachodesh. Okay, but that's not what it is. There are three kinds of kedusha. There's kedusha of things, a Sefer Torah, an Aron Kodesh, tefillin, physical things. There's a kedusha of people, kohanim, highest level kedusha, kohen gadol bigger above that, and kedushat hazman, the holiness of time. As I said to someone the other day, maybe in one of the classes, I don't remember anymore. Today's what's today's date? 15th. So May 15th is never of 2025. After today is never going to happen again. Now, it's not like they recycle. Okay, we got the year 2170. Okay, let's start over. It doesn't work that way. You further away time is gone. Right? We talked about it in the class last week, actually, when we talked about the idea of your priorities, of prioritizing things. So the idea of saying that they didn't really, it doesn't make any sense. The rabbis did, the Kiddush HaChodesh. What you're doing, you're saying that time doesn't have holiness, and time does have holiness. I can prove it to you. I ask you right now to take a pen, don't. If I ask you to take a pen out, write down 2 letters, no problem. But I do ask you to do that tomorrow night, you can't do it. What changed? Shabbat. You're not allowed to do it. It's the exact same action. And it requires 0 effort, and you can do it with your eyes closed while singing the ABCs. Makes no difference. Because the Shabbat you're not allowed to do it, because of Kedushat Hazman, the holiness of time. And therefore, cheapening and degrading, debasing time is also problematic. Now, again, we're not talking about someone who wastes time. Oh, he doesn't get over blah, blah. We're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who falls into these kind of categories purposefully. It's like, makes no difference. It's useless. It's Kedushat Makom is place. That's right. So it is, yes. So you have on Yom Kippur, you have the confluence of the holiest person, the holiest place, and the holiest time. Right, that's right, in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Kodesh Kodeshim. The next one is, I believe, self-evident, but we're still going to talk about it. It's Hamalbin Pnei Chavero Berabin. Someone who embarrasses someone publicly, but if you translate the words, it means someone who makes someone's face white. Leaving aside all possible jokes that could be mentioned, what does this mean? First, we have to understand the topic of ona'at devarim. That means verbal abuse. Most people are not verbally abusive. Most people, as are most people, good people. But without realizing it, they could be involved in an action of ona'at devarim without even realizing it. For years, my sister is like this tall, 4'9" or 10. She's teeny. I used to like put my arm on her head and say, how's the weather down there and all. Finally, one day she said, I really don't like that. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. And that's it. That was onat dvarim. She didn't like it. Calling someone 4 eyes, when they have glasses, I don't know if it does anymore, brace face, all these things that we think are cute. If the person doesn't like it, that's onat dvarim. That's verbal. It's not the same as calling you stupid, whatever, and you burn all my food. That's not this. It's not doesn't rise to that level. But understand it falls into a category of hurting somebody's feelings. A nickname, it says in the Shulchan Aruch, calling someone a nickname they don't like, you can't use. You can't call the person that. Red. Okay, very good. I'm going to come to that in a minute. Right. We're going to talk about that. Very good. we have been lied to, or we were lied to when we were little kids. All of us, because all of us learned sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And it's exactly the opposite. We were all lied to. Sticks and stones eventually, okay, hopefully get over that and heal. Someone calls you a name. When a teacher calls a fourth grader, you are the stupidest person I've ever met. That is imprinted and scarred that kid for life. Thank God that wasn't me. I know someone that exact thing happened to. Okay, and we all know people who, teachers or parents or rabbis or whoever it might be, said something just plain stupid to a kid, and it scarred them for life. I had one student last summer. We met for like 7, 8 times just to prepare him for going to start next year Gemara. And in the beginning, his mom didn't tell me, and I'm really glad she didn't, that he's told himself because of a teacher, he's stupid and he will never learn Gemara. And while we were going, I'm saying, okay, yeah, it's great how you came up with Gemara's question. Wow, that's Gemara's answer too. And he came home and said, wow, I guess I can do it. That's not about me. It's about how badly this kid was injured psychologically. And if you don't catch that and see that early on, you can talk about a lifetime of this. I've had people say, Daf Yomi, Gemara. Kidding me? In fourth grade, my fifth grade Rebbe said, I'm never going to learn Gemara. He was right. Okay, it sticks here. I just mentioned the other night in one of the classes, the concept of Girsa de Yankuta. What we learn as kids imprints and stays with us. It's hard to unlearn something that you learned as a child. So publicly embarrassing someone. If I'm talking to one of you privately and I say, by the way, I know what you did in the store the other day. Really, not my team. I'm sorry. That's embarrassing for you, but it's not public. It's not nice unless I'm trying to help you, like try to correct something, which I still not do it like that. But you do it publicly. What happens there? Gemara says the following: Tani Tana Kamei de Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Tana said the following in front of Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak: Kol hamalbim pnei chavero berabim. Whoever embarrasses somebody publicly, ilu shofech damim. It's as if he murdered him. Why? The azel sumka va'ati chiva. The red leaves and comes white in its place. The blood drains. Yes, you do get embarrassed. You do flush, but very often also that blood drains from a person's face and they get pale from the absolute embarrassment. The busha, the embarrassment, is so severe that what happens sometimes to a person physically, it affects their blood pressure immediately. It affects the flow of blood. They may have a heart that skips a beat or two. So it's you kill that person for that moment. No, it's not one of the hareg v'yavor, do the sin and don't get yourself killed. But it doesn't rise to that. It's ki'ilu. It's as if. There's something I was going to say. Hold on about that. Oh, went out of my head. But the idea of publicly embarrassing a person. It says there's an halacha, a statement that says better to go into kivshan shalesh, better to enter a furnace than to embarrass someone publicly. Where's that from? So we know the story of Yehuda and Tamar. When Yehuda, one of Yaakov's sons, had a daughter, Tamar, and a daughter-in-law, Tamar, and a son who was married to her. He died and had a couple rights. Married, died, and there was supposed to be yibum. Tamar was supposed to marry one of the surviving brothers, and they didn't. So Yehuda, whatever. Long story short, he ends up sleeping with his daughter-in-law, and he thought she was a prostitute, and he had given her some things as an eravon, as a surety, and she ends up being pregnant. And someone goes to Yehuda and says, "Oh my God! Your daughter-in-law who's single. She's pregnant. Bring her out. We're gonna burn her to death. This is horrible thing." She was being taken out. And then Yehuda spoke up. She didn't say it. She could have said, "What's the matter with you?" It's from him. But it would have been such an embarrassment at that moment. She would prefer to be burned than what, in quotes, than to publicly embarrass him like that. Now, we're not talking about people like you and me. We're talking about Yaakov Avinu's son. Okay, they're different Ramah. But what ends up happening as a result of that union? David HaMelech and then Mashiach. There's a whole shir. I gave it, but it's not my Torah. It's heard, I think, from, I forgot who, Rav, it'll come back to me. about how you see over and over and over some of the most important things in Jewish history, the results like a Mashiach or David started off with something illicit. But better, but using that expression or that idea, understand that if you think for even a microsecond to say something publicly to someone in front of their face or about someone, understand the gravity of what you're about to do, because that's a horrific thing to do. I do remember there's another one last point about this having to do with busha, with embarrassment. In halacha, when someone injures another person, let's say I walk around, I see somebody and I push them down the stairs, God forbid. Okay, I have to pay 5 things: ripui, tzar, shevet, boshet, and nezek, which mean I've paid the doctor bills, I've paid the lost wages, I have to pay for their pain and suffering, I have to pay for their ripui, tzar, shevet, and boshet. Boshet is embarrassment. And they say, it's all based on how do you put a price on busha, on embarrassment? So it's based on who did the embarrassing and who was embarrassed, right? So if a little kid pushes me down the stairs or I push a little kid, obviously terrible examples, but a different type of busha involved. And where did it happen? Sometimes you see teenagers will do things to impress a girl. They'll do something that's just terrible and hurt someone. But there's a concept of busha and halacha that you actually have to compensate someone for. We're not talking about saying something publicly. That's a totally different situation. In any case, since we here at this table, and all those hopefully listening, that's not something we would ever engage in anyways, trying to at least not purposely try to embarrass somebody. It's for those people who really have to watch their mouths, what they do. The Mishne, one of the other Mishnot says in Pirke Avot, it doesn't say Libri. It says, Siag lechochma shtika. One of the fences, a protective measure to have wisdom, is keep your mouth quiet. Just quiet. You think you have something to say? Unless it's really important or it really will contribute, you just think it's a remark you want to throw out. You don't know what you're going to do with that sometimes. Just zip it and stop. Have a nice day. Pleasure.